Democratic Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania. Senator, thanks so much for being with us. Executive privilege out of the picture. The director testifying on Thursday now. The Senate Intelligence Chair says that he will have wide latitude to discuss his conversations with the president. What are you hoping to hear?
Well, just an accounting of those conversations, John. I think they're critically important because there's no question, based upon the reporting by a number of news organizations about the interactions between then Director Comey and the president, that alone is interference in an investigation, totally inappropriate. There shouldn't have been a single meeting. Once someone is investigating you or your administration, you can't meet with them. You can't meet with them for lunch, you can't meet with them for any reason, in my judgment, because if you meet with them, even if you don't discuss the investigation, and apparently this was an instance where they did discuss the investigation. We'll hear more about that from Director Comey. But even if you talked about the weather, just the meeting itself creates the appearance of impropriety, which, as you know, is as important sometimes as the impropriety itself. So I want to hear, in listening to the testimony, I'd like to hear about those interactions, what the president said, what the discussion was.
So you called, when the day that the president fired Comey, you put out a tweet that got retweeted thousands and thousands of times, calling the president's firing of Comey Nixonian. Twofold question here. First, if Comey was truly concerned about obstruction of justice, why do you believe he didn't voice any even hint of that concern when he testified in front of Congress on March 20th? And then add to that the interview that Jake Tapper did on this network just on Sunday with Senator Mark Warner, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Intel Committee, asked directly, do you have a smoking gun? And he said, we have, quote, no smoking gun at this point.
Well, I think there are a couple of distinctions there. One is the question about what evidence do you have on the Russia probe and smoking guns, and that applies to the Russia investigation. But I'm sure that Director Comey will be asked about a lot of these things, including the meeting itself or the interactions with the president. But it's critically important, I think, for the American people to know that when an investigation is underway, that you can't interfere. You can't. No one out there, if you were arrested for suspicion of a crime or you were the subject of an investigation, no one you know would be allowed to have interactions like the president apparently has.
Senator, but that is the open question here. And Andrew McCabe, the acting director at the FBI, was asked outright when he was testifying, has anyone interfered with your investigation? He said no. He said there was no interference. A source familiar with James Comey's thinking told our Gloria Borger that had he seen obstruction, which may be another way of saying interference, that he would have done something. You say there's no question that it existed. That very much seems to be the open question.
No, here's the distinction. That you could interfere in an investigation and it may not rise to the level of criminal conduct which would prove obstruction of justice. So we'll wait and see. I'm certainly not in a position to say there is obstruction of justice, but I am, and the American people are in a position to say there was interference based upon the reporting. Now, if someone has evidence that Director Comey lied about that interaction, but any interaction between the president and the FBI director, once the investigation was announced in March, in my judgment is inappropriate. Now, some other people may come to a different conclusion. I think it's totally inappropriate. There should be no meetings, there should be no interaction, because the interaction itself might be inappropriate, but even if it's not, the appearance of impropriety here is all over this. And I don't think we've seen something like this in recent American history. Most public officials would be told by everyone around them, don't even set up a meeting, let alone have the meeting. Don't even go there, because it will convey interference, even if there isn't in fact interference.
Senator Casey, thank you for your time. We will all be watching. The world will be watching 48 hours from now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.